Before you select what you're going to wear, I want you to select how you choose your intention for the day. Select your intention. Close your eyes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, and just ask, what is my intention? Do I select for the day? Do I select to feel ease? Do I select to feel gratitude? Do I select to feel flow and creativity? Do I select, okay, God, I want to play a game with you today. I want synchronicity. I want a mystical experience. I want to see you in every conversation. I want to see you wherever I walk. I want to be aware that I'm always at the right place at the right time because I am choosing the intention to see you in the divine blueprint of my life.
Let's talk about change. The truth is, nothing changes unless you change. And if you want to step into your full potential, you need to surround yourself with the right people. That is exactly why I have created the InPowered Life community. Within this community, I'm going to be teaching you the exact same mindset and energy practices that I have taught my clients that are paying me well over 6 figures, including CEO owners of billion-dollar organizations and professionals at the very top of their fields. You're going to get access to 2 live virtual calls every single month with me where we're going to dive into mindset, energy practices, spiritual principles that are going to help you thrive in every area of your life. Can't make a call? No worries. We're going to provide you with a recording so that you can catch up anytime. Plus, you're going to have the opportunity for direct coaching from me and to learn from incredible guest speakers who are going to share their best practices and growth. Remember, you become the people that you spend the most time with. So why not spend time within a community that is going to elevate you and your life? For an introductory $499, you're going to get a full year of support and coaching alongside high performers who are committed to expanding their careers, their growth, their finances, and to elevate their overall quality of life. Just click the link in the show notes or log into rudyricksteins.com to lock in your spot and start your transformation today. Welcome to the Empowered Life Podcast, a space dedicated to spreading the message that you have the power within to create everything you seek.
So if you're ready to enroll in a new kind of higher learning, the kind that leads to true personal freedom, then hang here with us.
We're your hosts, Rudy and Aniston Ricksteins, and this is the Empowered Life. Welcome to the InPowered Life Podcast. My name is Rudy Ricksteins. I'm your host, and I love to bring you incredibly meaningful conversations, share stories with you, insights, anything that is going to potentially shift your way of being. What I mean by that is shift how you think or shift how you feel on any given topic, and compounded, it's going to create a profound shift in who you are and how you ultimately get to show up out and in the world. Today, we're going to be speaking to the incredible, the sensational, the amazing Cathy Heller. She's a spiritual teacher, she's a coach, and a podcaster whose work blends entrepreneurship and spiritual practices. She hosts Abundant Ever After. This is a top spiritual podcast with over 45 million downloads, where she coaches her listeners to shift their identity, to receive possibility, and build work-aligned purpose. Her new book, Abundant Ever After, aptly named, teaches us to move beyond the law of attraction towards the law of reception. This is a Kabbalah-informed practice that is attuning us to receive what is already available to us. I have no doubt in my mind that by you being here and you listening to this episode today, it is going to expand your capacity to be more, to see more, and ultimately to receive more. Cathy, thank you so much for joining us in the Empowered Life Podcast. I said it before. Gosh, I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Oh my gosh, what an absolutely exquisite way that you just set it all up. Thank you so much for having me. You have such good energy. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you. You know, I've been watching you from afar for so long, and so to actually have this conversation with you is really just surreal. I love how candidly you're able to articulate profoundly deep spiritual truths in a way that's like, oh yeah, I should always have known that. I want to start off today by introducing our audience to a topic that I have immersed myself in. But interestingly enough, I have never brought the conversation onto the podcast, and that is as it relates to Kabbalah. You teach Kabbalah. For anyone that is listening to this that doesn't know what the word Kabbalah means, that doesn't know what it represents, that doesn't understand the Jewish mysticism, I would love for you just to explain what is Kabbalah and why should someone kind of pique the curiosity to dive into that a little more.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for asking me that question and for creating a platform where we can have that conversation. So Kabbalah is like universal wisdom. Actually, Judaism is universal wisdom. You know, there's so much I could say about this. So I'll just start by saying very often people, they think of yoga as like an exercise, right? Like you go into a class, you work out, you break a sweat. They don't realize that yoga, I'm just using this as an example, yoga is actually a path that one piece of that path has to do with your physical poses, and so much more of that path has to do with wisdom and insight that has spanned generations and generations and generations. So too, Kabbalah, people maybe know about it because like Mila Kunis and Ashton Kutcher and Madonna have gone to the Kabbalah Center, but they don't really know what that means. And in essence, Kabbalah is Jewish mysticism. So it is the essence of the spiritual teachings of the Torah. It is the commentary that allows us to unlock why are the verses written this way? What is the spiritual technology? What is the code by which Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were teaching us to order the stars and to plug into what is within each of us? Jewish, non-Jewish, like whatever, like all of us have the ability to tap into this code. And what's really, there's so many amazingly powerful things about Kabbalah, but you know, when you look at the chakra system, which a lot of people have now heard of, oh, the chakras, right? You have your root chakra, your crown chakra. So what's really fascinating is that in Kabbalah, what correlates to the chakra system is the Sefirot. And the Sefirot are actually a identical match to the chakra system. In fact, the word keter, which is the word for crown in Hebrew, is literally the corollary to the crown chakra. So what I think is so interesting about that, and I had breakfast with Dr. Joe Dispenza 3 years ago, and I was talking to him about this. I said, you know so much about these energy centers. Has anyone shown you the Kabbalistic mirror image? And he said yes. He said he was once doing a retreat in London, and there was a Chabad rabbi who came to the retreat and said, I have to come and show you. And he sat with him in his study and he was blown away. Why was he blown away? Because back then, thousands of years ago, they didn't get on a conference call. They didn't Zoom each other and say, all right, let's just make sure that we're, marking everything the same and using the same language. No, but they did. Because why? Because truth is universal. So I just want to start by saying that. The next thing I'll say, since you asked me specifically, what does it mean? The word Kabbalah literally means to receive. So the word lekabel, right? The conjugation, the word lekabel, which also Kabbalah, it means to receive. So that is in and of itself a fascinating place to start, that the mandate for humanity is to be a receiver. And then the question that gets asked is, well, what does it mean to be a receiver? And so what's so absolutely gorgeous about Kabbalah is that the entire tradition is based on the understanding that you are a vessel, you are a kli, to use the Hebrew word. And just like a light bulb is a vessel for light, just like that, we came into the world to receive the light of God, the light of the Creator, the light of the infinite. And every one of us has a capacity to expand the vessel. And so the entire purpose, the entire journey, everything that's happening is inviting you to expand the vessel. In fact, right now, as we record this, we are in a period of time on the Hebrew calendar, which we call the 3 weeks. We actually are now in the 9 days leading up to what's called Tisha B'Av, which is like one of the most constricted, most contracted, most dark, dense energy days on the Hebrew calendar. It's actually the second of the days of the year that we fast. There's a few other minor fast days, but the one that people have heard about is Yom Kippur. This is another one. But what's really interesting, since we're recording it now, I think this is just a monumental teaching, is that different parts of the year and different days of the year have a different energy to them, which a lot of us already know that. We can sense that. We also know a little bit about the zodiac, which, by the way, is also Kabbalah. Abraham wrote the zodiac. There was a book that was found called the Sefer Yetzirah, which is the oldest carbon dated book ever printed that we've ever found in living history, which he wrote, which was found in Israel, in Beersheba, where Abraham lived. That is an incredible piece of archaeological findings, which helped us understand that this man, thousands of years ago, without a telescope or any instruments, was able to not only chart the stars, but to tell us what the energetic makeup was of every month, which is why the Hebrew calendar follows the lunar calendar and not the solar calendar. So everything about time actually has an energy. There's an energy to time. Time is cyclical. So I'm a Gemini, and I am very much a Gemini. My birthday is one of the longest days of the year, which means it's one of the brightest days. And Geminis are very much like, they are bright souls. They tend to be air signs, right? Well, they're air signs, but because they tend to be literally people whose feet don't touch the ground, okay? They're literally so expanded. And that is the days of the time of year where we receive the Torah on Mount Sinai. June is a time of year where a tremendous amount of light pours in the world. Okay. But this time that we're recording in right now, it's interesting. And I think it's one of the best ways to understand Kabbalah. So these days between Cancer and Leo are very, very dense days. So some people call it Mercury in retrograde. Some people describe it as like, well, it's really hot. It's a very hot time of year, right? Like I'm in Florida right now. It's hot. You feel like you're walking through a dryer, right? And when June comes, the light of June and the heat in June is different than July and July moving into August, because in June, it's kind of like, oh, summer. Like you want sun-kissed shoulders and you want to go to the beach and you're starting to open up and you feel this feeling of euphoria that it's summer, right? Like Olaf in Frozen, he's like, summer. But once we get into the end of July, the heat starts to feel like it's a lot of heat. And as you move from July to August, it's starting to feel like you're ready for the fall, like you're ready for something to break this intense heat. What's interesting is that historically, these days have been some of the hardest days in human history, especially like I can give you examples on the Jewish side of things, which is that the temple in Jerusalem was destroyed twice. Roman Empire, it was destroyed again. Both of those times happened during these days. Also, Kristallnacht, which was the beginning of the Holocaust, was on during these days. And a lot of people do, in their own personal lives, feel a lot of intensity in these days. So what Kabbalah would say, which I think is just an amazing way to answer the question about Kabbalah, is just to talk about the energy of right now, because it's so potent, is that all God, all the Creator can do is pour light into the world. Infinite, unbelievably unconditional, powerful, cosmic, mystical, infinite possibility, beautiful light. We said earlier that our job is to be a vessel, is to be a light bulb. If you have a 45-watt light bulb and you try to pour 100 watts through a 45-watt light bulb, any amateur electrician will tell you it won't work. The reason why it won't work is because the filament on a 45-watt light bulb cannot hold 100 watts. So it will break the bulb. So many people in these moments when things feel hard, they experience it as if this is a punishment, this is a test, this is negative, this is a contraction. When in reality, when anything is happening that feels really, really dense and hard, if you could suspend your disbelief for a moment and actually grasp that all God wants to bring you is light, then maybe what's actually happening is it's there to help you invite in a greater capacity for light. How many times have we experienced the death of a relationship because something greater needs to be born, even if it's the same two people creating a completely different relationship? Or how many times have you been let go from a job or have tremendous conflict with a friend, and you come to realize it's because you were being invited to a version of yourself that has grown past that relationship or that job, or the version of you that is operating from an operating system that no longer can get you to where you want to be. So even though these days of the year historically have been seen as a very difficult, crunchy time, the sages say that actually what is potent and possible in this time is more magic than any other, because the light is so intensely bright. if only we would actually change our perception. And when there are these heavy things, we actually say, I'm so excited that this is happening in my relationship because it is a signal to me that I have outgrown whatever version I have been living in my truth. And it's asking for me to expand. There is more light. There is more of me that wants to come through. So there is so much that we can talk about, and I'm sure that we will, but I think that wisdom, if it's not already self-evident, is very applicable to anyone, no matter your religion, no matter your path. I think it's just extremely powerful, which is why I do think, to answer your very last question, I think it's something that would pique people's interest because you really can't get enough of that kind of understanding of the universe.
You touched on so many things there, and every time you said something, I was like, ooh, I've got to ask you a question on that. Ooh, I've got to, and I started making notes, and then eventually I stopped because I was like, I have to always filter these interviews through the lens of the audience and thinking, what do they need to hear? Not what does Rudy want to ask next? And so I'm going to go back a bit, but bear with me for a second when I say my wife is a master numerologist. She just decided to one day start studying this, and it's an ancient form of Hebrew language translated into numbers that speaks into the energy. So she can tell you by day, by time, by relationship. What is the energy? What are you experiencing? And the reason I share this with you is Aniston will introduce this in conversation, and people shut down. But they're like, oh, that's against my religion to talk about astrology. That's against my religion to talk about numerology. That's against my religious beliefs to believe in something. And I never want to leave those people behind. And so you've just beautifully articulated, and I feel based on my level of understanding, you bridged the gap for me, regardless of what religion I'm from, that this, universal truth is available to me and I can adopt it. But there are going to be people that are listening to this that are going to say, oh, that goes against my Christian faith. I'm not Jewish. And then you did say, but it does translate. You can. And I have studied so much. I've been an avid learner since a child. And I've never ever touched text that is, let me rephrase this. I've never learned something in Kabbalah where I've said, oh wow, this is an incredible concept I've never thought of. It's always been, oh my gosh, this just makes sense. It's almost like I've always understood this is the way that it is. Even though I don't come from a Jewish background, to me, it's nonsensical. I'm like, absolutely. Of course, we're supposed to receive more light. Of course, and so I would love for you to do two things. And this is a challenging question for you. I would love for you to speak directly to somebody who is not Jewish and saying you're going to gain what by having this. And then I want you to actually ground one or two exercises that we could adopt as early as today or tomorrow to receive more light, because I think there's the value in what you're teaching.
I got you. Well, first of all, let me start by saying that most of the time when I meet people of all different faiths, what they don't believe, I also don't believe. Meaning to say, a lot of people think that God is Godzilla, right? Like this thing in the sky that judges you. That's one thing, which is interesting. And then a lot of atheists, it's interesting, will say things about how they don't believe in God, and what they actually do believe is closer to what is the idea of God in so many ways. So I think it's really interesting that words are so burdened that we actually need to define our terms, because they can be so polarizing when really a lot of the time we're saying the same thing using a different language. When I first met Deepak Chopra, I said to him, what's the meaning of life? And he said to me in Hebrew, because he knew a little bit about my background, he said, it's the Ein Sof, which means the endless light. And my rabbi and Deepak were on Larry King together with Marianne Williamson, and they all just finished each other's sentences. So I think that the question you're asking, it seems like a puzzle to answer, but it's actually always been answered. I think it's just fascinating how if you went to Alaska, there are 70 or more words for snow, because it's always snowing. So people don't call it snow. They describe the kind of snow. And I think that instead of using one word for God that you think means something to someone, if we start to unpack and describe, in the Torah, there's so many different names of God, because we can describe God in so many different ways. And I think that when we have more than a hashtag of a conversation, we realize how universal and how cosmic and how mystical and how it all works together. And it's actually even beautiful that we use different languages, because even that is helpful, because some people relate to rap music more than they do to country music. And so we all find our own way of relating to this thing that moves us through the world. What I will tell you is that from the get-go, the essence of, and I'm just speaking about this, what you just asked me, how is Judaism, how is Kabbalah relevant to everyone? There is this very well-known concept that Abraham believed in one God, and he gets this gold star for being the first monotheist. A lot of people, that's monotheism. He started that, right? And what's really fascinating is that it's bigger than that, because he didn't say just there is one God. He said God is one. So that's very different. And so as Rabbi Aaron, who's my Kabbalist teacher, would say, we're each a masterpiece. We're each a piece of the master. And he also says, you are someone because you're some of the one. So it can't get more universal than that. And so the idea was, and I'll take it a step further, the reason that there are so few Jews in the world, separate from anti-Semitism persecution, is because Jews don't convert people to Judaism, because we don't believe anyone is not connected to God. Judaism is like, my husband and I had to get tested for Tay-Sachs because we have a genetic thing called being a Jew, right? Which is why it's a people. Like my daughter has glasses. I'm not surprised, because it runs in our lineage, and all my kids and me, I blew my hair out, but we all have curly hair and we have Semitic faces, right? And the point is, it wasn't meant to be that everyone should be Jewish to connect to this beautiful wisdom. It was that there's all these different peoples in the world, and there are people who connect and have different kinds of codes, but this code is also available for all of us to find this incredible way to connect to the universe in this one system and blueprint. It's a grid. So 100%. I mean, that's just the way I was raised, because that is, in fact, if somebody asks you that they want to become Jewish, you're literally in kindness supposed to say, why do you want to be Jewish? You're already connected to God. You're not supposed to proselytize them, which most people cannot believe that that's true, because it's very different. But that's how inclusive this is. So this is a technology for anybody who's interested in this technology. What I can tell you is that every single day, what I witness, and then I'll give you an exercise because you asked for that, is there is an illusion of separation. If you didn't know that you're a masterpiece, a piece of the master, then where is this thing called God or your source? Well, it's somewhere separate from you. That's the greatest illusion. When you realize, and anytime you've actually had a moment where you felt deep connection, whether you were at the birth of your child, or whether you were at a funeral, or whether you were sitting with somebody who's sick, or whether you were just there for another human being, there's a feeling of connection that you feel where you realize you're connected to something. And there is a part of all of us, it's not in the mind, but it's in the heart, that if you ask this part of you at any moment, on a Tuesday morning, on a Friday night, if you ask this part of you, what do I need to know right now? You'll always get an answer. That is the part of you that is infinite. That is the part of you that came here with a soul assignment. And for me, the greatest, most magnificent thing that happened to me was I went to Jerusalem after college. I thought I was going to be there for 3 weeks. I met Rabbi Aaron. I stayed there for 3 years. I've been studying with him ever since. And he gave my life tremendous meaning. He turned the lights on in a dark room. It all made sense. I was hosting a retreat 3 months ago, and the first morning of the retreat, this beautiful woman from Indonesia got a call that her mother unexpectedly had a heart attack and died. She booked a flight right away. Her flight was for 5 hours from then. I said, can we be there for you? She said, sure. And no one knew her in this room. Most of them didn't know each other. And to watch a room of 85 strangers immediately hold space and love a person they just met with tears streaming down their face. And I said, can we invite the soul of this beautiful woman's mom into this room who right now is local? She is local. Can we just pay homage and thank her for this beautiful daughter that I'm bawling. Everyone's bawling. And I said, that's the power of your soul. The mind does this thing, which is it wants to protect you. So it's always in separation mode. It's always in lack. It's always scanning for danger. The heart is always connected to God, to the infinite, to your source. The heart is never in lack. It's always full. The heart will always move into compassion. The heart has wisdom. The heart always sees through the eyes of love. So I'm going to give you an exercise based on this teaching, but one of the most important teachings that Rabbi Aaron taught me is this idea that every single day, it's like if you had a waffle iron or you had a toaster and it was unplugged, you'd be denying yourself what this thing is supposed to do. It's not supposed to take up space on your counter. It's supposed to plug into the electricity that is its source and do its job and be in service. When we wake up and we reach for our phone and our minds get hijacked and we start going into fear and doubt and dread and scarcity, it's like we stay unplugged the whole day. The practice is that every single day, before you grab your phone, before the world tells you how to see the world, you have a meeting with your soul. Even if it's 30 seconds, you have a meeting with the divine, even if it's a minute. And you remember to plug into the electricity. And you ask, what would you have me know today? It's a shock to hear it, but maybe, just maybe, the answer won't be go get more followers on Instagram. It's a shock to hear it, but maybe the answer won't be make more money, make more money. Maybe the answer will be pause, slow down, spend more time with your kids, say a prayer for your neighbor, go out of your way and buy lunch for the person next to you for no reason. And the person who just heard that, you're the recipient. Because the opposite of depression is not happiness, it's purpose. And when you recognize that you just being a loving, whole, beautiful vibration in the world literally changes the biology of other people. It changes the plants, the way they grow in your house. Your whole family is working off of one nervous system. Like you are aware in moments like that most people chase success and what they actually want is significance. And when you are plugged in, you become the lamp and God's light becomes infinite and it flows non-stop. And they recently did a bunch of fMRIs at Columbia University with these monks, and they found that there was almost no brain activity. But these are very wise, learned, amazing humans. It's because the wisdom doesn't come from the mind, it actually comes from the heart. So when you plug in, your heart is literally electromagnetic. When you plug into your creator, you ask to remember, what is my soul assignment today? Sometimes your soul assignment is working on your anger. Sometimes your soul assignment is forgiving someone. Sometimes your soul assignment is pitching your book because you know that you're being called to do it regardless of the outcome. You have to just listen in because most people are scrolling, looking for the answer outside themselves because what they're really feeling is separate from God. They're separate from their power. They're separate from their wisdom. And then you just see people hijacked all day long, commenting on things on social media that they have no business commenting on, creating more angst in themselves, creating more fatigue in themselves, and they're sitting on gold. So the exercise I often give people is the same way that you select what you're going to wear for the day. Before you select what you're going to wear, I want you to select how you choose your intention for the day. Select your intention. Close your eyes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, and just ask, what is my What is my intention? Do I select for the day? Do I select to feel ease? Do I select to feel gratitude? Do I select to feel flow and creativity? Do I select, okay, God, I want to play a game with you today. I want synchronicity. I want a mystical experience. I want to see you in every conversation. I want to see you wherever I walk. I want to be aware that I'm always at the right place at the right time because I am choosing the intention to see you in the divine blueprint of my life. When we do that, you have a completely different day. So the metaphor I use in my book is like this waffle iron. It's like, it's not a paperweight. It makes breakfast. You are not there to take up space. Each one of us has the capacity to change what's happening in the world when we create a temple, a vessel for peace, for light, for love, and infinite possibility. And by the way, one thing I love about Kabbalah and Judaism is that there's no contrast around having both abundance of energy and abundance of all the things that God has put into this world. Have a beautiful garden, wear beautiful clothes, like elevate. It's not one or the other, right? And so even if your goal is to have an incredible company and to touch a lot of lives, it's like, great, steward that, grow that. And by growing that, you're creating more abundance for other people. So there's nothing to minimize. All of these goals are why we're here. But I think that it is so important to have that meeting with yourself before you just go right back into the noise of the world.
Hey, it's Aniston Ricksteins here, and I want to ask you, have you ever wondered if there's more to your life and work than what you're doing right now? What if I told you that the universe is hiring and you were born to fill a role that will bring you true purpose and success? In my new #1 best-selling book, The Universe is Hiring, Discover the Role You Were Born to Fill, I'm going to show you exactly how to step into that role. This isn't just a book full of inspiration. It's a roadmap to help you start shifting into a more fulfilling life right now. You'll get clear on your unique purpose, learn how to align with your strengths, and take actionable steps towards the career and life that truly light you up. If you're ready to make a change and start living the life you were meant for, grab your copy today. Available anywhere you buy your books online or click the link in the show notes.
I was invited to speak at a mastermind retreat 2 weeks ago in Kauai in Hawaii. And it was 3 powerful females that have their own masterminds came together and collaborated on one massive retreat. And I teach a morning practice that is a form of priming your mind, your body for who you want to be and connecting to yourself. But I teach this inside of mostly organizations. How do you become the best version of yourself? But being invited to this event, I was asked just to teach the morning routine to these ladies who were aspiring to be impact driven, purpose driven individuals. And the morning before I was to teach this, I was in a very deep form of meditation and just sitting in my room, 4 o'clock in the morning. And I all of a sudden received this message, this download. I need to teach them to connect to their higher self, to ask the question, what do I most need to know? And in that moment, I open my eyes and I'm like, oh no, these women are not ready for that. Like they're very strong Christians. There's no way on earth I could say this. And so I ignore the message. I go back into meditation and I just sit there. And for me to be disrupted out of meditation, it was quite a message. And then I went back to my meditation, finished it, started my day, went to the gym, and that would not leave me. It was like gnawing at me. You have to teach them to connect to their highest self, to ask their soul the question, what do they most need to know? And I keep getting this question. I'm like, oh my, they are not ready. I turn to my wife and I'm like, babe, I don't know what to do. And she's like, do it, do it. And I'm like, not in this room. It's really, really very spiritually grounded Christian woman. And I don't know if they're going to be ready for this. And she's like, you got the message, you have to follow through. And the reason I share this is just to underscore everything that you just said. There's so much value in that. I went into that morning open to receiving and to sharing what was ready for the room. And I said to them, I'm going to teach you my practice. Here's what it is. But I want to give you an experience instead because I received this yesterday. I said, so just trust me, sit back, relax, and just follow my voice. And I took them into a deep meditative process. It's 5 a.m. This, ocean waves are crashing outside us. And it was the most beautiful spiritual experience of my life. There was this light rain that came down that didn't wet us, but it was just touching us, like these little speckles of I want to say God essence everywhere. And I then took them into a meditation where they connected to their highest and their greatest self. And then they were to ask the question, what do I most need to know right now from my soul to me? And then to start writing. And then we gave them time to write. The entire room, we were sitting outside on the lawn, the entire room was crying. Like what came through was profound. And the messages, some of these ladies are very successful, and their messages were, you are worthy and you can let this go and you no longer need to carry this. And it was like they wrote these messages to themselves. It was so beautiful, so divine. And I've been doing this for so many years, and I've never taught that publicly. I do it one-on-one, but I've never done it to a group. And I saw the beauty and the power of that. And when we finished, there was this incredible double rainbow that was over the entire space of where we were. It was so magical. And I share all of this so that the audience could just turn around, go back and re-listen to the last 15 minutes of everything that Cathy just said. Because the most important thing that you can do, I believe, is to connect to that light, to draw in more of the divinity that is you, that is flowing to you and through you. You can never separate yourself from it, but you can absolutely diminish your capacity to receive it. And for so many of us, we have. And I know what the difference is between doing and not doing, and allowing and not allowing. I actually have a tattoo on my forearm of opening my hand to receive the light. And I'm not even a tattoo person, but I had to see it all day, every day in front of me. And so I really encourage people to learn more about that. I'm going to pivot slightly because we are so close on time, but I want to talk about your insanely powerful book, Abundant Ever After.
That
You
was
teach
amazing, by the way. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. You teach that, we kind of need to move beyond law of attraction. And law of attraction is so there right now and so sexy. And oh my gosh, yes. But you're teaching really to go into the form of receivership. And I would love to know, through the lens of your book, how did you shift from law of attraction, meaning draw it to you versus allow it to come to you? Was there a moment, or was that more of an understanding that came through your teachings?
Yeah, it was actually a very specific conversation I had with Rabbi Aaron, because in the early 2000s, everyone was watching The Secret. And he's like, I wanted to know what that was about. So do you want to discuss it? And I said, yeah. And he said, I just want you to know that the way that we would say that Kabbalistically is not the law of attraction, it's the law of reception, because if there's a check for you already in escrow, you don't have to attract it. You just have to receive it. It's already in escrow. It's here. So he gave this incredible metaphor, which is in my book, and I quoted him in the book, which is that we are living life just like a radio. Meaning to say, if I put a radio right here in this room, right now I don't hear any music, but if I turned on the radio, I would hear the music. And where was the music before I turned the radio on? It was hidden in plain sight. All I needed was a receiver, which is a word for a radio, to tune into what was already here. And to go even further with the metaphor, if you turn on a radio, there are multiple stations that you can broadcast. You can listen to a sports announcer, you can listen to a baseball game, right? So you can listen to rap music, pop music, oldies music, salsa music, hip hop music. All of it is actually already here. So this is even more to the point of the law of attraction. So what you're broadcasting is where your receiver is tuned. So it's not just that everyone's hearing the rap song or everyone's hearing a Broadway show tune. They're definitely not all hearing the same song. The receiver is dictating what you're hearing. All those potentials are here, but the life you're living is the one you're tuned to. And so that is why the law of reception makes so much sense. It's like, it's done, right? And God, the infinite creator of this universe, is beyond time, right? Time is, we experience it as 24-hour days that move into weeks and years. But when you go beyond the solar system, there's no 24-hour day. A day on Jupiter, by the way, is 9 hours and 58 minutes because of its relation to the sun. You go beyond the solar system, time evaporates completely. So God is beyond the past and the future and this. It's like there is no time, no time. So that means that it's all already done. So if it's already done, it's already here. It's already here in a way that you just have to tune into. So the question to ask is not what do I need to do, but who do I need to be? Because the quantum leap is changing radio stations. And when you notice that you're tuned to a feeling of unworthiness or lack or need or attachment, you actually just keep pushing the music further and further away. When you're tuned to a feeling of love, a feeling that you are someone, some of the one, there's nothing you need outside of you anymore to be whole, because you are whole. You're a vehicle for this light. You see the light in everyone. All of a sudden, the radio is tuned to a love song. Everything in your life feels like love. Everywhere you go, you feel like you just met a new friend. And even if something is tricky or hard or a little sticky, you say, oh, I was put here because I'm here to fix it. I'm here to heal it. Two people living the exact same day are going to have a completely different day depending on where their receiver is tuned. So the law of reception is, what are you available to receive? What music is playing through you? And when you go even further, you realize you're the music. You are the song. You are God's best song. And the best thing is really knowing that and then fully living the most authentic, whole version of you, where you're just there. People say, I have to protect my energy all the time. And I say, that is such a exhausting way to live. What's better is, instead of protecting your energy, project your energy. Because the most powerful person in the room is the most loving, is the most whole, is the most at ease. The most impressive person in the room is the most loving. No one's impressed because you talk the loudest. No one's impressed because you post all the time on social media the same thing. No one's impressed because you went to the college or you have the right car. The most potent resonant force is wholeness. And wholeness means we don't need to be the same, because we are so whole that the periodic table of elements, where every element is different, copper, boron, silver, they're actually all part of a whole, which is why they don't have to be the same. When light goes through a prism, it shatters into all the colors of the rainbow, but they're all part of one infinite light. Every orchestra has wood instruments, brass instruments, so sameness is actually not oneness. So that which is whole has space for all that is, because all that is inside of all that is, which is the infinite, unbelievable light. So contrast is also a gift, right? Without the low notes on the piano, you wouldn't appreciate the high notes. Without darkness, you wouldn't appreciate light. In fact, Kabbalah says that, we say that the lightest days of the year, the time of the most miracles, rather, I should say, it's in Kislev, which is December, which is Hanukkah and Christmas. But why would it be that the shortest, darkest days of the year are the days that have the most potential for miracles? Because a tiny little light in a dark room is way more powerful than a really big light in the noonday July sun. So everything is actually there, continuing to corroborate the exact same truth. So when we remember who we are, not I am Cathy Heller, but I am, and the essence of me, the part of me that you helped everybody find within themselves at that retreat, and you walk through the world that way, you manifest the most unbelievable life. And everywhere you go, you're happy that you had to get your car serviced because of who you got to meet. You're happy that you wound up at that sushi restaurant at that exact table because of what happened and the conversation that was had. And you realize God and the infinite light is that unbelievable that it is all constantly conspiring to invite you to be in service, to be the blessing that you came here to be.
I love to remind people that every moment is a divinely orchestrated moment and that it is perfect in its likeness, because everything is happening. It is absolutely perfect. The interaction, the meeting, the bird pooping on your shoulder, anything and everything. Again, I have a million Rudy questions, and I have to ask a question for the benefit of the audience. You touched on something a little earlier, and you mentioned that it is okay to be abundant in receiving light. It's okay to have abundance in love, and that abundance can also translate into the abundance in money or abundance in all things that God makes abundant. And so if we have the capacity to receive from source the abundance of all things, there's so many people that struggle with being spiritual and having money. There's people that struggle with having money and being judged. And so I would love to know through the lens of your book again, because I really want people to grab a copy of Abundant Ever After. But through the lens of your book, if they were going to read one chapter in your book that you felt would really be able to shift their way of being out of thinking that they're not worthy of receiving that level of abundance, or that they can have abundance in all things and that they don't have to limit themselves in any capacity, what chapter would that be and what would they gain?
Chapter 3 is where I start talking about money, because I start with talking about everything we kind of just said spiritually. And then I move into money after there's a grounding where we lay the groundwork, I should say, so that people know from which standpoint I'm coming from. I almost wanted to start with money, actually, because it's so triggering to people. We have been indoctrinated with every movie, with Shakespeare, with every turn. We are being told that it's interesting. We're being told two messages. One, we're being told that people with money are evil. It's in every story. It's wherever you look. And we're also being told that we're not enough unless we have money, which is why we then think people with money are evil. Everywhere you go, there is a advertisement for what you could be if you spent this money and had this thing that represents the status. So isn't it interesting that people are obsessed with having more money? That is the thing that probably people are constantly worried about most, having more money. And they're afraid to say it out loud, how they judge people who have it. Because those are two completely conflicting messages that have been spread through the world for thousands of years. And then the truth of the matter is, there's a 17th century Kabbalist, the Maharal, who says that if you took a candle and you want to know how many candles that one candle can light, the answer is infinite. And from that light, if it lights an infinite amount of other candles, it doesn't lose its own flame at all. Abundance creates abundance and abundance and abundance. When we are being told that the world is scarce, then we believe we need more because we're so worried that we don't have enough, which is a lie, because the greatest resource is within us. The people that are the happiest, most of them eat one meal a day, even when they have lots of money. They choose to eat one meal a day. I just heard Coldplay, Chris Martin, say, I met Bruce Springsteen for lunch and he told me one meal a day because it puts your body in a better state and this and that. Like, when you actually strip this away, the people who are literally thriving the most, it's not because of how much stuff, the piles of things they consume to make them feel like they've got enough resources to not feel scarce. It's that they've tapped into their greatest resource, which lives within them. Because as my grandma always said, my grandma who came from the war and grew up with nothing, she was like, I used to take an eyeliner pencil, she told me, and draw a line up the back of my leg because you weren't allowed to go into a dance club unless you had pantyhose, but she couldn't afford a 5-cent pair of pantyhose, so she would make it look like she had them. And then she said, and I was the richest person in the room because I could dance. And I was there to dance. And the point of the matter is that abundance is so infinite, and our provision doesn't come from people. It comes from our soul. It comes from God. And not everyone is meant to be Kim Kardashian. In fact, it's probably a really hard life. Every one of us has the soul contract we have. And some people's soul contract, they really want to be a 5th grade teacher. And they're really rich because their students make them feel really fulfilled. And some people, whether they wanted to or not, were meant to be Jim Henson. And they had to give up a lot to sacrifice being with their kids to do those puppets because it was a calling. But one's not better than the other. And maybe one does make you $80 million and one makes you $65,000 a year. What matters is that you're in alignment with who you are, not that you're constantly feeling that lie that I'm not enough and I'm only enough the more money, the more cars I have, all of that. So that's a big lie. But in terms of living into your potential, if you are meant to be a redwood tree, please don't be a little shrub. If you are meant to be Serena Williams, it's not humble for you to not be the best tennis player in the world. That's actually denying who you're supposed to be. That's so weird. But in order to stand out like Michael Jordan, you have to have this thing happen to you, which is called you no longer fit in. And when you no longer fit in, people will judge you, but other people will be inspired by you, right? And hopefully people don't look at Michael Jordan and say, unless I'm Michael Jordan, I'm nothing. Hopefully they say, whatever is the greatness he conveys, I find in myself in my own path, because it's specific to all of us. When you think about it, just by having money, forget even donating it, which is an amazing way actually Kabbalistically to make more money, is to donate it. The more money you give away, the more money comes back. That is a Kabbalistic principle and it works every time. But even let's say you don't give it away. Just having money in a bank that belongs to you, what do you think it's doing in the bank account? It's funding other people's mortgages. The word currency comes from the word current. It has to keep moving. So the more money you actually create, the more you just created for everybody around you instantly, even before you donated it. If I decide that I want to improve my house and fix it up, not only did I just create value for my house, my neighbor's house just went up in value. If I open a store on Main Street, I just created the possibility for more economic growth for somebody else to now open a store. Abundance is abundance, creates abundance. If I plant a cherry tree, that just gave birth to 1,000 other cherry trees by virtue of the cherries that just came on the tree that now have seeds. It is literally fiction to think that the more you have, the worse of a person you are, or the more that you take from others. God is connected to every single person, which means you're not their source, right? But you could be a walking possibility, and you could create generosity, and you could create the awareness of what lives inside of all of everybody, because it lives in you. The Wi-Fi that lives in you lives in everyone else. There's a line in the Talmud that says like money is like rain in a garden. And it says basically Kabbalistically that if rain falls on weeds, weeds will grow, because money is an activator. But if rain falls on roses, roses will grow. And so all of us right now could think of an example of people who are horrible, who have lots of money. That's not hard to do. You can just ask yourself that. You'll think of people from the headlines. You could also ask yourself, can I think of people who have no money who are horrible? Absolutely. There are jail cells filled with both. Now you could do the opposite. You could ask yourself, can I think of an example of someone with lots and lots of money who's super kind? Of course you can, right? Reese Witherspoon sold her company for $1 billion. She seems like a nice person, right? There's a lot of people in my life who I know whose names are on the bottom of hospitals, who donate in a theater, who are out there trying to help, and also just really nice people who also dress well. And there are super nice people who have no money. So it's not the money that's mutually exclusive to the person. It's whatever you are, money will enhance that. If you are in integrity, the more money you have, the more good you'll do. If you lack integrity, the more money you have, the worse you'll be. It's not the money, it's the person. So the best thing to remember is we are one. So if something in the garden is pollinating, it gives life to the whole garden. So to go back to the oneness idea, we're like each a lightning rod. So if I allow myself to be that vessel that is receiving love, energy, resources, creativity, and money, I bring that consciousness. I bring that possibility. I bring that vibration into the whole world. And James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, said that who you spend time with is who you become. So if you actually want to do the best thing you could for the people around you, be the happiest, richest, most successful, most abundant version of you, most authentic, whatever that is to you, because you'll literally, without even trying, create that in the people around you.
I don't think there's a person listening to this that doesn't want to grab your book, because that's only chapter 3. And you have such a beautiful energy and a demeanor that just makes us want to be a better person. Makes us want to make more money, makes us want to be more giving and more caring and more sharing. I am going to ask you one closing question. We have only 2 or so minutes, 3 minutes left, and I would love to ask you to take a moment to just drop in and feel into our audience and simply just ask, what do you feel that the audience most needs to learn, or needs to know? And then feel free to share whatever comes to mind.
What came to mind, and by the way, I've never seen anyone do that on a podcast, but that is absolutely stunning. What a beautiful way to close a show. I feel that people walk around with so much imposter syndrome, like, who am I to do this? Who am I to have this? Who am I to say this? And I want to say what I just heard that I feel you might need to hear if you're listening is, you're not ready, you're over ready. It's like the banana on the tree that's now so dark, it's been ripe for so long. Who you are exactly as you are is an answer. It's a prayer that people have been asking for you to share or do whatever it is that you want to do. And the single thing that people need most is people who have the courage to show up as their most authentic, loving self. Nobody is actually looking for perfection. In fact, a friend of mine who's a screenwriter says, if you want to make the audience hate a character in a movie, you just make the character perfect. And by the end of Act 1, the audience has no sympathy for that person. But if you want the audience to fall in love with the character, then you introduce Anne Hathaway and she spills her coffee right away. And then, she's a klutz, so she trips over something or she doesn't say the right thing and she puts her foot in her mouth. And the audience will root for her the whole time. And I think what's deeper than this that I'm really getting at is, when we get to a place where we let go of shame and we, as my mindfulness teacher used to say, have tea every morning and invite every part of you to tea, the parts of you that are brave, the parts of you that are broken. When you make that space to see, as Rabbi Aaron says, when you're born, let's say it's like you have a bag with you, and in the bag is something brilliant and something broken. And as you go through your journey, you realize it was exactly what it needed to be. Because if you didn't have that broken piece, you wouldn't have been able to help those very people who relate to you because of the ways that you're broken and the ways that you're brilliant. And all of the central characters, the heroes, Batman is quirky and shy and doesn't like to go out, and Moses couldn't speak and had like a speech impediment. And so I think that people listen to shows like this and like, well, it's easy for Rudy and Cathy because they'll do this thing where they assign to us some level of like, well, they must be, superlative in these ways and I'm not. And that's not true. And you and I both know that in our own lives, there's so many ways that we're healing and growing and bumping up against our stuff. And everyone who's listening could be doing this podcast and has their own wisdom to share. And so what I heard that I wanted to say is, if you could make peace with all that you are, you won't believe how you've been preparing your whole life to show up in the biggest, fullest 2.0 version of yourself. And you don't need more credentials to do it. You just need to make peace with all that you are. And the world is so ready to love you for it.
As you answered that, I got lit up with what I call God bumps or angel bumps. Like, my entire body was electrified. What a beautiful message to be able to share, because I do think that so many of us are waiting to be ready. And we feel like we need one more thing that's going to prepare us for who we get to become, but we were divinely created for exactly who we came here to be, and we just need to be that. I'm going to challenge our audience to do a few things as we close out today's episode. The first is, if you're not following, Cathy Heller, what are you doing with your life? Like, hello. and to grab a copy of her book because it is incredible. It comes with meditation. There's a whole bunch of resources that you can benefit from. She is just such an incredible light that is out in the world. And then the third is for you to take action in something in your life in some way, shape, or form towards the person that you've come here to be. I loved the line, "You are a masterpiece and the masterpiece is within you." And, how could you turn around right now and just be the version of who you are today? I'm going to extend a thought to the audience and say, whose life are you preventing from changing because you're not being authentically you out and in the world? Because so often we make our lives about us and we don't take steps or we don't take action because we're waiting for us not to be, because we don't want to be ridiculed or blamed or shamed. But who's not getting the opportunity to see you, meet you, be impacted by you, to be loved by you, to have you demonstrate to them what does it look like to live courageously? And in doing that, in you living your life, it's not about you, it's about the people that get to benefit by you being you. And so I love you so very much. To the audience, Cathy, I love you with all of my heart. I think you're an incredible human being, and thank you for being on the show.
Oh my gosh, I had the best time. It was one of my most fun interviews I've ever been on. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. To the audience, we love you so very much. Please do tag Cathy in any of your feedback that you have for us on social media. I'd love to hear what was your greatest takeaway from this episode, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the Empowered Life Podcast. Goodbye, everybody. We love you.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. And we would love your support in leaving us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to check the show notes for more information on how you can find us online and on Instagram. Now go create an amazing day for yourself, and we'll see you again soon.